Hey, welcome back to the channel, everyone. So with the new server types and wish machine variants, I wanted to cover some great builds that the game is wanting us to try right now. In this video, I'll be covering the fast gunner build for the Phase and Coherence server types. So with Season 2, Once Human introduced two new game difficulties, hard and normal, as well as two variations of anomalies and wish machines. This fast gunner build will focus on the server type of Phase and Coherence, with the wish machine that includes both the MG4 Predator in Phase 1 and the Oasis mask in Phase 2. This build will work on a void and balance server, but you will have to rely on others to take down the shields for the anomalies before you're able to do any damage. Since this build will focus on the Phase and Coherence super anomaly servers, let's briefly discuss what those are. These are mobs that will have a shield that makes them immune to all damage unless you have the correct countermeasure. Once you down the shield, the mob will then be able to take damage from any damage types. The Super Anomaly Coherence countermeasure are Fast Gunner, which we're going to use as our primary damage source, or Bounce. If you are not using a weapon that deals that damage type, there are some Cradle overrides for pistol and crossbow that you can use to counter them. The Super Anomaly Phase countermeasures are going to be Shrapnel Damage and Fortress Warfare. Neither will be using in this build. However, the Cradle overrides are Sniper Rifle and SMGs, and I'll go more into the build Cradle overrides at the end of the video, but essentially we're going to be taking the Sniper Rifle override so that we can swap between the weapons to do damage. On to the build. For the main weapon, we'll be using the MP4 Predator. This can be obtained from the Wish Machine by purchasing it directly for 8,000 Starcrom, or if you're on the Phase Coherence server, you'll be able to gamble for it in the first phase. It is always recommended to gamble when the guaranteed item is the main item that you're going to get. So essentially, instead of paying 8,000 for the weapon directly, you'll gamble 10,000 and you'll rack up a bunch of other patterns and fragments that are pretty much guaranteed to walk away with a 2-star Predator for essentially 2,000 more. For the calibration, you'll want to find an LMG with double crit rate to help boost the damage. I'm personally using Stabilize, as it'll increase my stability by 20 and then another 20 when squatting, which we're going to be doing often in this build. Now, the way this build works is every time you hit a target, there's a 40% chance to trigger Fast Gunner on hit. Now, Fast Gunner is going to increase your fire rate by 1% and your attack by 1% for 2 seconds. Whenever our Fast Gunner stacks reach a multiple of 5, we're going to get unlimited ammo for a half a second. When we hit the same target, we're going to get 2% weapon damage per hit up to 40%. Finally, we get 40% increased attack for the first half of the magazine, and we will be combining this with another mod that's going to give us more attack speed on the first half and an additional 30% more damage on the second half of the magazine to keep the damage up the whole time. So this build doesn't have any fancy status damage types, so pure weapon damage is going to be our best stat. This is going to be followed by crit and then finally weak spot. For the mod type, we're going to want to use Shootout, which is going to increase our weapon damage another 1.5% up to 20 stacks. So essentially, it's going to give us another 30% weapon damage. This mod can come from weapon crates, the Shadow Hound, and the Tree Ant. For the key item, we're going to be using the Oasis mask. This will be available in Phase 2 from the Wish Machine, and again, it's recommended to gamble since you're guaranteed to get 2 stars as well as a bunch of other great legendary gear that you can use for future builds. The items that they give you while gambling are actually going to be Bastille pieces, so we'll likely get 3 Bastille pieces, which we're going to end up using for this build anyway. So this is probably the best I've ever seen on the Wish Machine. On the other server, we end up getting stuff that we don't even use in that current build, whereas on this server for the MG4, we're not only getting the key item piece, but we're also getting the 3 items that we're going to need for the build anyway. So this is a total win, all for 10k Starcrom. This piece is going to add 10 stacks of Fast Gunner to the build, which is going to give us 10% more speed and 10% more attack, which means we're getting 2 more multiples of 5 for that unlimited ammo phase. And then the mod type that we're going to use is called Blitzkrieg, which is going to add another plus 5 Fast Gunner stacks with 5% more firing rate. And this can be obtained from the Silo EX1. As we discussed, next we're going to want to do 3 pieces of the Bastille set and 2 pieces of the Savior or Scout for even more weapon damage. The Bastille will give us 10% weapon damage when we are above 70% hit points, 20% increased reload speed, and when we crouch down while firing, we're going to get another 40% weapon damage. The Savior set is going to give us negative 20% medicine cooldown and an additional 10% weapon damage when we're above 70% hit points. Or you can go with the Scout set, which will give us a flat 10% more max HP, as well as 8% more weapon damage. And this is honestly an excellent choice, and it saves you 6,000 Starcrom, and you only lose 2% weapon damage, but you end up with 10% more max HP, which is very nice. Quick note as I showcase the mods for this. This is my alt. I'm not even close to having a single good version of any of these mods, and I'm still destroying all the content. Like, even my weapon is only +7, so your build is likely going to perform even better, and if you have the right mods and stats, you're going to be doing insane amounts of damage. So for the Helm, we're going to want to use Momentum Up, which increases the fire rate for the first half of the mag and the damage by 30% for the second half of the mag. And this can be obtained from the Silo Alpha. For the gloves, we're going to use Munitions Amplifier, and this is going to give us 15% weapon damage if you have a legendary version, and this can be obtained in the Silo Sigma. For the shoes, we're going to use Covered Advance, which grants an additional 20% weapon damage for 30 seconds if you haven't taken damage in the past 4 seconds. Or you can use Ruthless Reaper, which after getting 2 kills is going to refill 100% of your magazine from your reserves. So essentially, for the cost of 20% damage, you can have a nice quality of life where you rarely, if ever, have to reload. For the chest, we're going to be using Rejuvenating, which is going to heal us every time we kill something, helping to keep us above that 70% hit points for all of our damage buffs. For the pants, we're going to use Bullet Siphon, which is going to add another 5% damage for every 5 bullets, capping at 20%. And this can be obtained from the Silo Psi. For the secondary, I recommend using the Bingo Sniper, but you can use any sniper. And this essentially, when swapping to it, will trigger Bullseye on the first hit. This will also mark the target for 8% vulnerability for 12 seconds, and then we'll get another 8% with the vulnerability mod. Now, if you don't have any of the mods listed, just look for something with good secondary stats. And remember, the priority for this build in order are going to be weapon damage, then crit damage, then magazine size, and reload speed. Other nice to haves are HP, especially in PvP. Moving on to the Cradle. For the Cradle, automatic weapon enhancement for 20% more damage. Master Tactician, which is going to give us 25% more damage after using a tactical item when fighting Great Ones. Deviation Master, which is going to give us 25% more damage for elites and bosses when your deviation is out. Anti-Phase Sniper to counter the phase anomaly with our secondary weapon. Tactical Combo, which is going to increase our damage by 25% when swapping weapons. So if we use the sniper to mark and then we swap, we're going to increase our damage for the next 4 seconds. Fast Pursuit. After defeating an enemy in Fast Gunner, we're going to gain an additional 10% crit rate and another 15% weapon damage for 15 seconds. Steady Hand, while in Fast Gunner, weak spot damage is going to be increased by 40% and another 20% to the bullseye. And the last slot is open. However, I use Lone Walker, which increases my damage while solo, but if you're doing group play, you can swap it to whatever you like. Same with Deviation Master and Master Tactician on PvP. Since it only increases damage to bosses and elites, you can use something more defensive for these slots. So just a note, if you are playing on a void balance server, you'll need to modify your Cradle slightly to handle the super anomalies. You want to take the countermeasure for the sniper rifle to handle balance anomaly, but with the fast gunner LMG, there are no counters against void, so you'll need to rely on others to take down the shield or run. Run for your life. And they will follow you to the ends of the earth or whatever land we're in. Those things are relentless. Next, if you're a new player under level 10, or you have an alt under level 10, or you're swapping to your next server, and you'll be under level 10, and I'm not positive it works for that. It might just be for new characters only. Essentially, you can hit F3, you can go to events, and then under gather friends, if you hit X and put in my code, which is going to be all lowercase YQ151159129, you'll get a free MG4 Predator to try out. So you'll get this weapon here. So that's the build. It is a ton of fun, and I love the whole fantasy aspect of just spraying what feels like an unlimited amount of bullets at enemies and then watching their limbs fly off, which means that they'll end up crawling at you with like one arm, and sometimes you may not even realize that they're dead until you go past them and they hit you. So that has been really cool to see. And then let me know in the comments if there's some other variation that you recommend. And if you like this video, please toss me a like, and I'll be working on more builds for these two server types and server types in the future, so be sure to subscribe to get notified when I upload. And we also have a Discord community you can join where I keep all my spreadsheets and supporting files for all my videos. The link is in the description below if you want to join. I have a meta spreadsheet that you can find this build as well as others, which I try to keep updated. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.